Welcome to the Maria Heller Show, on the net since 2000 and still going strong. If you feel like you're not getting the real news, if you feel like you're not connected spiritually, you have found your home. Meria covers a wide range of topics as only a snarky New Yorker can. Straight up, no chaser. No censorship, no corporate sponsors, thus true freedom of speech. Your subscription gives you unlimited access as a member of the smartest audience on earth. Relax and enjoy the education. Now here's Meria.
Good morning, world. Meria here, alive and kicking. Welcome to the show. I have a very special guest today. In my own estimation, as I told my own doctor, he's one of the best doctors in the country. And this is Dr.Neal Barnard. He's the founder and president of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. He's authored more than 70 scientific publications, 19 books, one of which I'm super grateful for. But today we're going to be talking about his program for reversing diabetes, the scientifically proven system for reversing diabetes without drugs. So I'm so happy to have you back on the show, Dr. Barnard.
Well, it's great to be back with you.
I can't believe I looked up and I said, all right, when's the last time I had him on? And it's still in the archives on my site, so everybody listening can go in and listen to that show too. But I was surprised. It was like 2012. I was like, oh my God, 7 years have passed.
Well, let's make up for lost time.
Absolutely. You know, before we get into your book and talk about diabetes, which obviously seems to be epidemic in America, I do want to say a thank you to you. All those years ago when I did interview you, it was on your book, Breaking the Food Seduction. I don't know if you remember because I'm sure you do thousands of interviews. But, you know, I tried your plan because I had absolutely a chocolate addiction. And even though your plan suggested it took 12 weeks, it took less than that. And all these years later, I no longer have that chocolate addiction. And the eating plan has kept me super healthy for somebody my age. So I want to thank you for that.
Oh, well, congratulations. That's wonderful.
Yes, I'm very excited. Let's get into this diabetes. You know, I have a lot of friends. Some of them have diabetes. Some of them are on medication. Some of them are shooting insulin in their bellies a couple of times a day. And, you know, their attitude is, and I don't know whether you've heard this before, that everybody is pre-diabetic, and sooner or later, everybody's going to have diabetes.
I think it's true that you could induce this theoretically in just about everybody, but I'm hoping that people don't go down this path. And now that we understand the cause of it, which is not eating bread or having a soda, now that we understand the cause, we can do something to prevent it. And if we put that to work, I think we can go a tremendously long way toward preventing this disease.
Right. What do you think of people that, you know, and I hear this all the time, their doctors tell them they're pre-diabetic. What does that mean?
Pre-diabetic is a number. There are different ways of defining it, but the idea is that your blood sugar is not high enough for a diagnosis of diabetes, but it's higher than what we would consider absolutely normal. So if a person comes in and the test that we use is called hemoglobin A1C, or for short, we just say A1C. Mm-hmm. So the person comes in and their A1C is 6.5. We're going to call that diabetes. But if they're 6.4, we would call that prediabetes. And so, anyway, there are ranges for both of these things. And prediabetes just means you've got a high blood sugar that's not quite to the range of diabetes. So above 5.7 is where we're going to call it prediabetes, and above 6.5 is where we call it diabetes.
Right. And, you know, you look at the news and, you know, it's constantly people complaining about the cost of their insulin going up. You know, some people say 5 times this and that. And is your plan something that works or can help people that are already injecting insulin?
Absolutely. They should be first in line for doing this because they have a chance of reducing their insulin usage or even getting off it completely, depending on how soon they start. But there is, first of all, there is no one for whom this plan is a bad idea. Everybody should be following a healthy diet, and if you really do a good job with it and you really stick to it, the results can be striking. Let me give you an example. Back when we started our best-known research study, which began in 2003, funded by the U.S. government, we were testing a plant-based diet for type 2 diabetes, and a man named Vance came in. He had been a policeman, and then he worked in a bank. And anyway, he had diabetes for a number of years. He came in, and we put him on a completely plant-based diet. What I mean by that is there's no meat in it. There's no dairy, no eggs. But he said, this is not hard because prior diets, he had to count carb grams and limit calories and all that stuff. In this case, it just meant instead of meat chili, you have the bean chili. Instead of meat sauce on your spaghetti, you have the tomato sauce. So it was just simple changes. And over a year's time, he lost 60 pounds.
Wow.
His A1C value had been 9.5, which is really not good, and it dropped to 5.3, which is flat out normal. He was off his medications by the end of the study with a normal A1C, and you know what that means? That means there's no trace of the diabetes detectable anymore. And when he discovered this, I have to say, it's kind of funny, not really funny, but I paced around quite a long time before I decided I could tell him he didn't have diabetes anymore. Because at the time, the whole idea was that you can't get rid of it. But what we discovered is here's a man who did get rid of it. And in fact, since then, there have been lots and lots and lots of people who have done the same thing. So I don't care how old you are. I don't care how long you've had diabetes. I don't care how many medications you're on. Get on a healthy plant-based diet of the type that we described. Follow the advice that we have and see how well you can do.
Absolutely. Neal, I need you to speak up a little because your sound is a little low. I've been trying to play with it.
Let me see what I can do.
Oh, yeah, that's way better. Way better. It's interesting because even one of my friends who has diabetes, he doesn't even know whether he has type 1 or type 2. I don't even understand that, but I don't have diabetes. So what's the difference between type 1 and type 2? How do you know which one you have?
Okay. Type 1 means that the pancreas is not making insulin anymore. Insulin is the hormone that's made in the pancreas, and it travels to the surface of muscle cells and liver cells and elsewhere in the body, and it acts like a key to let the glucose inside the cell. Type 1 diabetes means that the insulin is not there anymore. The cells that make it are dead. And so in type 1 diabetes, you're going to have to inject insulin. In type 2, the pancreas is still making insulin, but the cells of the muscle or of the liver resist the insulin's action. So even though you still have insulin in your body, the cells are not behaving. They're not responding to it very well. So that's the difference.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But we recommend a healthy plant-based diet for both cases. Everybody should be following it. But with type 1, though, you're going to still require some insulin treatment. With type 2, you've got a shot of getting off of it.
Okay, I see that. Now, do you have to be overweight to have diabetes? Because, a lot of times I think it was Mary Tyler Moore. She was very slim, but she was I believe, one of the big movie stars back in the day that talked about having diabetes.
You don't have to be overweight to have diabetes. That's certainly true for type 1, but it's also true for type 2. Most people with type 2 diabetes are overweight, but many are not. But the fat accumulation we're talking about that causes type 2 diabetes is inside the cells of the body. And let me be clear about the cause of type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
Muscle cells start accumulating little particles of fat inside each individual muscle cell. It's microscopic. As that occurs, then insulin can't signal that cell to let sugar inside anymore. The cell is what we call insulin resistant. So if you follow a vegan diet, there's no animal products in it at all. There's no animal fat anymore. If I keep the oils really low, there's not much of any kind of fat. So the fat inside the cell starts to drain out. And then that's why your insulin resistance diminishes and you get healthier. So that's the reason Vance didn't have diabetes anymore, is he went on a vegan diet, and so there's no animal fat. He kept the oils really low, and his insulin resistance just improved dramatically.
That's fabulous. When I was reading through your book, I noticed that, of course, you talk about diet, and it compared to the diet that doctors are handing out to diabetic patients. Actually, I have a friend who tries to tell me that his doctor never even gave him a diet to follow.
Regrettably, medical education and also continuing medical education that doctors get after they're in practice, these areas have been dominated by the pharmaceutical industry. And so the whole idea, if a person has diabetes, many doctors are not even aware of what I just described as the cause of this disease. Mm-hmm. And they hand out a prescription for metformin for the patient with type 2 diabetes as their first line of defense. Now, metformin is a reasonably safe drug and well tolerated by most people. Mm-hmm. But you didn't get diabetes from having a metformin deficiency. You got there from eating cheeseburgers or dairy products or meat or other fatty foods that cause the fat to accumulate inside your muscle and liver cells. And so my prescription, job number one, is to get that fat out of there.
Right. Well, I could tell you this, 20 years ago, I became a plant-eating person. So I have to say, thankfully, I'm in great shape. I'm healthy. I'm not on any prescription drugs. So for me, it absolutely worked, let alone, helps me to balance my weight for sure, especially breaking my chocolate addiction, thanks to you. I did want to get back to that story. After I started your plan all those years ago, it just happened. I was about 6 weeks in, Neal, and my friend invited me to a party. And I went to the party, and they had this triple chocolate fountain that was calling me from across the room. And I walked over to it, and they had these gorgeous strawberries. So I took a strawberry, and I whipped it through that chocolate probably 10 times. And then I put it to my mouth, and I have to tell you, I ended up spitting it out. And I was shocked. I was like, what?
Now tell me why. What made you do that? What made you spit it out?
The taste was gone. I had no longer had a taste for it, and it just tasted really weird when I ate it. But don't forget.
The spell was broken?
The spell was broken. And I used to keep, giant bags of chocolate in my house. My kids can attest to that. But it's no longer the temptation that it was. And it was shocking to me to do that. I was like, wow, what happened? There wasn't anything wrong with the strawberries. They were beautiful. I tell my friends they look like they were handcrafted that day by God. And the chocolate was flowing like nobody's business. And I just couldn't eat it. So, in that book, which I'm sure you say similar things in this one, when you say it only takes, I believe, 12 weeks to change your taste buds, it took less than that for me.
Yes, it sometimes can happen very quickly, and it's not only with foods, but we see the same thing with smokers and with other habits. A smoker might love a drag on a cigarette, and they feel good as a smoker, but if they are able to break free, however they do it, really within about 3 weeks, they really like being a non-smoker, and they like the fact that their clothes don't stink and their fingers aren't yellow and that kind of thing. And then there comes a point where you couldn't pay them to have a cigarette. And it's that way with foods. There are certain foods that we get hooked on and we love, and we think life without whatever it is just not worth living. But then you break away, and your health gets better, and you're losing weight, and your energy is stronger. And then you come back and you taste that food again, and you think, what the heck was I thinking of? Why did I put this food on an altar when it really didn't love me back?
Right, exactly. Well, I've been a vegan now for 20 years. And one of my friends asked me just recently, what do you miss? What do you miss most, out of whatever you used to eat? And I had to think about it. And I said, well, I used to be like a chicken wing fanatic. But now they have such great vegan chicken wings. So I said, it would have been that, but I like the substitute so much better. The vegan chicken wings. And I made a dinner and had him actually eat a chicken patty that was not chicken. And he said it tastes better to him than a regular chicken.
That's really what we have found. We bring people in for research studies, and we explain to them that you have diabetes, and so you got the fat in your cells. It's called intramyocellular lipid. This is the fat. So this is why we're changing your diet. But what we often discover is that many of them say, okay, I get all the biochemistry, but I just like these new foods better. And if that sounds funny, I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota, and every day of my life it was roast beef, baked potatoes, and corn. That was the way we ate. Except for special occasions, then it's roast beef, baked potatoes, and peas. But it was a kind of restricted diet. And now I live in Washington, D.C. And on a plant-based diet, I could do it Italian style. With, like last night, I was at a nice Italian restaurant where I had angel hair pasta topped with roasted garlic and artichoke hearts and wild mushrooms. Or they have pasta e fagioli, or I could be at a Chinese restaurant with rice dishes and vegetable dishes and tofu dishes, or a Japanese restaurant would make vegan sushi, where they wrap up a cucumber or asparagus or you name it. Thai food, Vietnamese food, Ethiopian food. If you said, no, you can't have any of that anymore, you go back to your Fargo upbringing of just eat roast beef, baked potatoes, and corn. You think, how restrictive is that? So I have to say, I don't miss animal products at all. In fact, they're, to me, kind of revolting, despite the fact that I grew up with them, and despite the fact that even my extended family raised cattle.
Right.
So,
well, listen,
those days are gone.
Right. I mean, listen, I grew up in an Italian household, so I don't need to tell you about the sausage and the meatballs and the meat lasagna and all the rest of it. But I have found that 20 years ago it was hard to find vegan products that you could switch out for that same kind of consistency or taste. But one day I did buy vegan sausage, vegan fake, chopped meat, and I made my sauce the same way I've always made it for my children for 50 years. And interestingly enough, I didn't tell them that I switched out the products. And my son said it was like the best sauce I had ever made. So when I finally told him none of it was meat, he said, Ma, it just tastes the same as your sauce always did, he said, but without the gross stuff. You know how sausage has those little unidentified crunchy things in them. So, if you don't tell people, they seem to be okay with it. But as soon as you tell them, it's like, oh my, what did I just put in my mouth? And I'm not here to convince anybody to, change what they're living. We're talking about diabetes and the fact that so many people have it. And doctors don't make the connection between diet and diabetes, or any disease, as a matter of fact.
Luckily things are changing. There are more and more doctors who do, but it's true. The message has been slow to infiltrate the medical community, unfortunately.
Well, the beauty part of it is, with all these different coffee factories out there, whether it's Starbucks, whether it's, there's so many of them. It used to be that if you asked them for coconut milk or almond milk in your coffee, they would stare at you funny. Today, everybody gives you those options. Yes,
exactly. The world is changing, and for many different reasons. Some people don't want to have milk because they're lactose intolerant, which is not a disease. It's totally normal. It just means you don't ingest milk sugar. And so lots and lots of people want the dairy substitute for that reason. There are other people who say, well, milk is associated with prostate cancer, and my father died of prostate cancer. I don't want it for that reason. Or there are other people who say it's anti-environmental because dairy products come from cows who are busily belching methane. Or there are other people who say, I don't want to have dairy because the way you make a cow produce milk is you artificially inseminate the female. You take away her calf when the calf is born, and then you're going to keep doing this cruel process year after year after year. And people who have a heart for animals say, well, I don't want it either. So whatever the motivation may be, many people are pushing for the non-dairy milks, the non-dairy ice creams, non-dairy cheeses, the non-meat burgers.
Right.
And I think ultimately you're going to probably want to go a step further toward more simple kinds of foods. But the substitutes are, I think, a really good stage.
Oh, they're a good bridge.
Kind of vegan methadone, so to speak.
Right, it's a good bridge in between, and then eventually you get, you kind of pass them by. But I've also noticed a big difference, and, I live in Arizona. We're not exactly the most progressive state in the country. But I've noticed over the past 10 years the expansion in the grocery stores of organic products? You know, when we're talking
organic
produce.
products and also vegan products. I was visiting my parents in Fargo, North Dakota before they passed away, and I was amazed. You could go into the regular grocery store and there was vegan hot dogs and vegan sausage and vegan everything. So all these products are there. And I knew that things were changing irretrievably when athletes started to go vegan in a very big way. And we're starting to see this. It started out with the distance runners.
Right.
And then the tennis world got into it. Venus Williams and Novak Djokovic. And then now it's the football players.
And bodybuilders.
Football players are throwing out the dairy or throwing away all animal products completely,
right.
And they find it helps their game.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of famous bodybuilders that are also vegan. And I love, posting them when I see them on social media because you hear that same old tired thing, where you're going to get your protein. And these guys are built like, Supermen. And they're like, nobody's going to ask them where they're getting their protein. Your father was a doctor, and your father also treated people with diabetes. Was that where you got your idea to be a doctor or to, treat these diseases?
Great question, but the truth is exactly the opposite. I never. Well, my dad grew up on a cattle ranch, and he did not like it. And he left, and he went to medical school, and he became the diabetes expert for Fargo and all of eastern North Dakota. But not once did I ever see my dad get home from work and say that he had cured anybody from diabetes. In fact, I never once heard him talk about anybody having a particularly good result. It was fighting this losing battle, hoping to stave off complications as long as possible. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And when I was in my internship, I was not interested in diabetes either. I just thought, this disease does not have a really optimistic side. However, what happened in my life was that I was working with the foundation that they asked me to help them design some research trials on diabetes. And the reason was that they were giving out money for diabetes research, and they were sick to death of scientists saying they wanted to create a diabetic mouse. Or a diabetic rat. They said, what's the point of all this damn stuff? This is not going to get us anywhere. We need to have some kind of better, more ethical research and research that's going to get us somewhere. So they asked me my advice. I said, if I were you, I would look at diabetes in human beings, and I would focus on not making a new drug, but focus on refining the diet part. Mm-hmm. And so they said, all right, fine, you do it. And so, that's what got me into this with a kind of small initial study. But the more we did, the more we found that it's just really, really successful. And so eventually I got to the point of viewing diabetes, rather than being this thankless condition, as being one of the most exciting conditions there is, because you can make enormous progress with it.
Right.
And the patients are extremely grateful. And not just the patient you're dealing with, their children, mm-hmm. or their spouse or their grandchildren. You can have an enormous impact on the entire family by working with one person with this condition. So anyway, it's a great thing to do.
Absolutely. The other day I was at the gym, and this young woman, I thought she was way younger than she was, but when she told me she had a child in her that was 20, I was like, what? You don't even look like you're 30. And we got to chit-chatting while we were on the elliptical machines. And she told me that she has a total plant-based household. She didn't say she was a vegetarian or vegan. I like that she said we're a plant-based family. So I was pretty happy. I was happy for her. She said she had heart disease in her family, and she's working out, and she's, eating right and whatnot. And, I remember telling her, if you're not living your parents' lifestyle, why would you get their disease? I don't remember if you said that on my show years ago, or if it was Dr. McDougall. It's hard to remember. What do you think about people that say, well, I'm just genetically predisposed to diabetes, that's why I have it?
Well, some people are genetically predisposed to these things. There are genes for diabetes, just as there are genes for Alzheimer's, there are even cancer genes. But genes are not destiny. I put genes in sort of two big categories. One is what I call the dictator genes. So if your genes say blue eyes or brown hair, that's going to happen to you, and you can't argue, because those dictator genes
right.
give orders to you. But the genes for diabetes are more like committees. They sort of make a suggestion, like you could get diabetes if. And so let's say you've got those genes in your family, and you've inherited those genes. Mm-hmm. If you don't gain weight, if you eat in a different way, if you lace up your sneakers, you can dramatically reduce the likelihood that this will ever happen to you. And that is also true with Alzheimer's disease, true with heart disease, true with certain forms of cancer.
Mm-hmm. Well, your book also talks about heart disease and blood pressure. And it's interesting to me because the few people that I do know that, have full-blown diabetes also have heart disease and high blood pressure. Are they connected?
We call this metabolic syndrome, where you're gaining weight, especially abdominal fat. Your blood cholesterol level is rising. Your blood sugar is rising, and your blood pressure is rising. These all tend to go together, and that's the bad news. The good news is that a diet change makes them all get better too. So, and the diet change is throw out the animal products. That gets the fat out of your cells, so your diabetes gets better. Cholesterol is only found in animal products, so there's no cholesterol in your diet anymore, and the animal fat is gone. In combination, that will lower your blood cholesterol.
Right.
And because all that fat is not in your bloodstream anymore, your blood pressure tends to drop. So you can conquer these problems all at the same time with one single diet change.
Huh. Now, you talk about cholesterol, which I don't know, it just seems overblown in our society. Everybody's on these statin drugs that my own self, don't feel they do any good for most people. But I met a man who said that, and he was a weight trainer, and they told him his cholesterol was high. And they put him on a statin drug, and within a few months, he had arthritis, crippling arthritis throughout his body. When he told his doctor the only thing he changed was the drug they put him on for cholesterol, the doctor said, well, that's a rare side effect. So the guy decided on his own to stop taking the cholesterol drug, and in a couple of months he felt better. It was gone. The crippling arthritic pain he had was gone. What do you make of that story?
Well, it is true that the statin drugs are widely prescribed, and they are reasonably safe compared to other drugs. They do cause liver disease. They can cause muscle problems, and those things are widely known, and doctors can screen for them. They increase the risk of diabetes a little bit. They increase the risk of weight problems. They also have a rare side effect of quite severe memory problems. It's not common, but it does happen. The point being, 90%, in my view, about 90% of people on statins really don't need these drugs. It's not that they don't have a high cholesterol, they do. And statins bring it down, and that's a good thing. The issue, though, is what was driving the cholesterol level upward in the first place was the fact they were eating cheeseburgers and unhealthy foods. And if they would go on a healthy, low-fat, plant-based diet, their cholesterol would come down to what nature had in mind for them, and probably 90% wouldn't need a statin at all.
Well, that's good news for sure. It was interesting to me because when I think of the typical diabetes diet that doctors give their patients, I'm not talking about a doctor like you, and then I was reading your book and I saw that people, if they want to have pasta or rice, they can go for it. Now that's something that regular doctors, which I don't know what you want to call them, traditional doctors, tell their diabetic patients to stay away from.
It's the old naive view that I got my high blood sugar from eating starch, and so you don't have any starch. And their diabetes doesn't go away. It doesn't get better with that approach. So keep in mind, as we started in this discussion, the idea is that if you have type 2 diabetes, you have accumulated fat inside the muscle and liver cells. So I want to get that fat out of the cells to the extent I can. Now, I'm speaking simplistically, but this is effectively the model that we're using. Mm-hmm. And when a person goes on a vegan diet, because they're eating beans or sweet potatoes, their carbohydrate intake will rise, but their blood sugars fall, and their A1Cs will fall. And so the old idea of going low carb to conquer diabetes is really, really a mistake. And if you want to take another perspective on it, look at, say, rural Japan or rural China. Mm-hmm. Before McDonald's arrived, They were eating rice all the time. It was a very high carbohydrate diet, and yet they were slim and healthy and had very little diabetes. So a high carb diet isn't an issue. It's not a problem. You want it to be healthy carbs, of course, but that's easy to do. And the idea of avoiding a bowl of oatmeal or some rye bread or something, or a healthy bowl of pasta is really not sound medicine.
Right, and I just want my audience to know you got a whole bunch of really good recipes in the book as well. Neal, we're going to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hi, Meria here, and I have a message. Due to the pressure of the times we're living in, I'm calling on all students and millennials to get the education they need to fight the fascism taking over our world. I've made a special subscription offer for students and for seniors on a limited budget. For just $9.99 a month, you can subscribe and get that education. Over 500 hours of real education that's necessary to understand the world, the problems, and the solutions. Remember, knowledge is power. Together you can change the world, but to do so you must be informed of what's really going on and have real facts to support you in your endeavors. It's time for all the grandmothers to take a stand and teach the younger generation what their life could be and how to get there. Help me help you. One person cannot do it alone, and the guidance you seek is right here at www.meria.net, Meria.net. Your generation is the generation we've been waiting for, so let me help you. Thanks for listening. Hi, this is Maria Heller. If you're enjoying this show, please consider listening to the rest of it, along with hundreds of other hours of education, by a small subscription on my site. Get over to Meria.net, Meria.net. You are the only thing that supports this show. There's no corporate control, and there's plenty of education on site. So please consider either a subscription or a donation to keep the work going. There are too many alternative voices out there that are being silenced because of lack of support. So if you don't want MSM to be the only mind-controlling news out there, please consider supporting the people that support you and help us all save something for the future for our children. Thank you so much.